The Denver Broncos suffered a tough loss to the Los Angeles Chargers, but there's some good news in this painful defeat. Let's break it down. This is one of the most difficult losses of the season, for sure, right up there with the blocked field goal against the Kansas City Chiefs. But even with this loss, we are still a strong playoff contender. Before this game, we had a 91% chance of making the playoffs. Now, we're down to 86%, but we can still clinch a playoff spot this weekend. The Cincinnati Bengals have some tough games ahead, and the Broncos' potential is still very high. There's a lot to talk about here. If you still believe in the Denver Broncos, even after this gut-wrenching loss, it would mean a lot if you could like and subscribe. By the way, my son, who's about 7 or 8 years old, sat next to me and said, "Bonix is him, Dad. He truly is." And after watching how he played against one of the best defenses in the league today, I have to agree. The Chargers' defense, one of the best in the league along with the Philadelphia Eagles, couldn't stop Bonix. He threw 2 touchdowns, and our first 3 drives were amazing. In the first half, it felt like Sean Payton was on fire with his play calling. Even he had the words "run it" written on his call sheet, reminding him to stick with the run game, and it worked. We had a beautiful opening drive, and it set the tone for the entire game. Our rookie class was fantastic, and that's where we can really find some great news. You saw Beanick's touchdown pass to Devin V, another rookie, and Audrey EST also scored a touchdown, another rookie. Abrams Drain picked off Justin Herbert, yet another rookie making plays. Drew Sanders got a crucial sack, something we haven't seen in weeks, maybe months, and we also saw Jonah Ellis get big playing time. This is a very young team, but they're still going to make the playoffs this year. In the first half, people on Twitter were saying, "The Broncos are going to be a tough team to face in the playoffs. Nobody wants to play them." This was a game we could have easily lost on paper. We were the away team on a Thursday night with a short week. The Broncos had already played 2 teams with their backs against the wall, fighting for their playoff hopes. Just 4 days ago, we played the Indianapolis Colts in a super physical game, where they had a players-only meeting saying, "We have to win this," or "We're in trouble." Then we faced a Chargers team that was struggling. You knew they wouldn't want to lose a 3rd game in a row, and that was going to be tough. Still, we should have won this game. Some of the refereeing decisions were really bad, and there was some questionable play calling by Sean Payton in the second half. It seemed like he got away from the strategy of just run the ball. After Abrams Drain's interception, we could have just handed the ball off a few times, gone into halftime with a big lead, and had all the momentum. Instead, we tried to throw it, had a couple of incompletions, and they got the fair catch. Then we ran into the receiver, and that shifted the momentum of the game completely. It's hard not to be upset about some of the terrible refereeing and poor decisions in this game. For example, there was that holding call on Garrett Buss against Khalil Mack. If that was holding, then Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper were both held as well. The Chargers were playing hard and fast, and they only had 1 penalty the entire game. That's impressive. Meanwhile, the Broncos had some really bad calls go against them. One of the biggest missed calls was the lack of pass interference on that deep shot to Marvin Mims. Watching it in slow motion, it's clear the defender didn't turn around to make a play on the ball. He was pulling down Mims' arm and just playing through him. That should have been a penalty, and it could have changed the game for us. Then, there was Jonathan Cooper's horse collar tackle. When you look at it slowly, you can see Justin Herbert had his hand inside Cooper's face mask, almost tearing his helmet off. It's frustrating because the referees didn't help us at all during this game. That being said, there were still a lot of positive moments. Our rookies were stepping up all over the field. That's why you have to stay hopeful. We're still making noise, and we could still clinch the playoffs as soon as this weekend. It's not over yet. The reason Sean Payton agreed to a Thursday night game wasn't because he was excited about playing the Chargers. He knew how important the Bengals game would be next week. Going to Cincinnati is a much tougher situation than going to SoFi, where we had a decent number of Broncos fans. Payton wanted every opportunity to prepare for that Bengals game. The Bengals were supposed to play tonight, with 10 days to rest before facing us. But now, they're going to have to play with a new quarterback against the Cleveland Browns, a tough team we saw a couple of weeks ago. If the Bengals lose to the Browns, their playoff hopes could be over, and we'll have an extra 2 days of rest. We didn't have any major injuries, which is a relief, but our defense didn't look as dominant as usual. We need to figure that out. I think it's all about momentum, and the Chargers had the momentum. They had more at stake. They couldn't afford to lose after being embarrassed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week. They came out hungry in the second half, and it showed. Sean Payton probably shouldn't have punted the ball on that 4th and 5 from midfield. There were a lot of small decisions and adjustments that could have changed the game, but I'm not giving up hope. Our young players showed flashes of brilliance, and we'll learn from this moving forward. Our playoff chances are still very much alive, with an 86% chance, something we'd have taken at the start of the season. There's still so much to believe in. Let me know in the comments what you're feeling after that game. Are you encouraged by how tough we played them, especially with their backs against the wall? Or are you ready to tune out until next season? I really hope that's not the case because this Broncos team is still going to make some noise. We've got a rookie quarterback who didn't look far behind Justin Herbert, and it's amazing to see that. People who doubted him during the pre-draft process, especially Bill Barnwell from The Ringer, were wrong. B. Nick is proving them all wrong. Even some critics are saying the Broncos were the better team for most of the game. But sloppy penalties on defense and, honestly, some terrible calls by the refs kept the door open for the Chargers. Credit to them for taking advantage. It's tough to lose 3 games to the Harbaugh brothers. It really stings. But I'm still very optimistic about these Denver Broncos. I'm already clearing my schedule for Wild Card Weekend. We've got so much to break down, from post-game press conferences to all the analysis. One thing I know for sure, the Broncos know how to bounce back after a loss. They've shown us that all season. We had the chance to extend our win streak and we didn't do it. But I still trust Sean Payton and this team. They're built differently now, and there's every reason to stay hopeful. We'll see how this weekend plays out to get a better idea of our playoff matchups. The biggest downside is that we'll likely end up with the 7th seed, meaning we'd face the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, a tough challenge. But remember, we beat the Bills last year with a much worse team. So why can't we do it again? I'll admit, after watching that first half, I was dreaming big, thinking we'd be heading to Houston and moving on to the second round of the playoffs. Maybe I got a little ahead of myself, but that's how much this team has impressed me. Let me know how you're feeling in the comments. We're all in this together, Broncos country, for the highs and the lows. Now, I need to get to bed since I've got a 5:30 a.m. alarm coming, but there's still so much to believe in.